Just bump into 4004 unit for a second. We're going to be talking about actually estimating unit costs and the likes of that. Now, we ran through the planning side of it pretty good. I think we've got a pretty good handle on the stages of planning of the house, construction-wise up until this point. I want to start recalling when we did the 4004, we talked about unit costs. So starting right from the very start, go back to the planning stage, go back to the very first things we said we were going to do in planning. They all come with a cost, don't they? Yep. So what was the first thing we did?
Clear the block. Clear the block.
We cleared the block, didn't we? Okay, so for that what sort of equipment are we talking about?
We excavator, bucket, or dumper trucks.
Yeah, okay. So in those sort of regards, that sort of equipment, what is the unit cost that would be normally applicable to that?
Machinery per hours. Machinery per hours.
Machinery per hour.
And
That's
the
right.
quantities, cubic meter, dumping fees,
Yep. And
we labor as well.
any labour, in particular labour. And that would be based on hourly rate as well. So when we're talking about clearing site, we've got to take into all those considerations. We have obviously the excavator or whatever equipment we're going to use, Bobcat, to clear the site in the first place. Again, depending on the site, what it is. There might even be rock breakers required for it. But again, if there's rock breakers, then that's an hourly rate. So we're looking at the equipment hire, we're looking at any external labour hire or additional labour hire that might be required to hang around it. Obviously there's truck hire, taking it away. And never forget, you always have dump fees, okay? You'll be very lucky if you get onto a site where you can do a normal cut and not end up having dump fees as well as, because you're going to have additional soil there. So you're always going to make sure that you're in your calculation as you take in those dump fees, because that's a pretty significant part of it, especially in these particular areas at the moment. You'll get $200-300 on top of that. Because if you don't allow that into the estimate, where is it coming out of? The clock. I got that message across everybody. Okay, so we've cleared the site, and we talked then about bringing our services in, and we're talking about say drainers and electricians running service points into here or running the meter. What sort of unit rates would we be talking about here? What would be applicable to? The hourly for digging, that's right. You've got to excavate and make sure the trenches are there. Yeah, you have a bit of a number of different ways you can look at it here. Drainers tend to go per point, okay? They'll charge you per point based on, they've already worked out how it is. And a lot of blocks, if we put this same house and we put it on acreage, would it be applicable? Same house, no. Is it because of? More running, that's right. So when you're looking at general houses, they usually allow for a 6 metre setback. Some will allow up to 10 metres. We usually don't have 10 metre setbacks anymore. So we're usually allowing a 6 metre setback and allowing to run here. So that also goes for the cabling for the electrical. So they allow for a unit price for the meter box to put that in there, and they'll run a per linear meter rate again from the, where would they be running
the pit?
From the pit to here. And what sort of power would they be running from the pit to here?
Maybe single phase or three phase.
Yeah. Single phase or three phase in the case of you had to use
air conditioners.
Air conditioners, that's right. So we're getting the single phase, three phase power in here, again, per linear rate, but a unit price and each price on the individual box. Okay, so we're having services in there. We're setting up for the, we're bringing out the surveyor to set out our points. How's the surveyor going to charge us? For the visit. You usually have
a lot size per square, under 500 square meter, they get different charge. If it's more than 500 square meter,
yeah.
after that.
That'll usually be when they're doing the original survey. When it comes to setting out the points on here, they usually charge for, because you could come out and do a pure square. If you did a pure perfect square, how many points would you have? Four, that's right. Do we think we've got more than 4 here?
Yeah.
So when they come to doing actual set-outs, as opposed to the original survey, they'll charge us per point. So when we're looking at that, in cases like this, we'd have a internal point, external point. External point, external. This secondary slab is poured later. So we're getting internal and external. So to be charged on, if it worked out to be 20 points or $30 a point, then we end up with $600. That's right. So that's the way it sort of works when we're doing set outs. Because obviously, the more points, the more complicated, the more checks they've got to do, the more time they're going to spend on the site. So when we're looking at a house like this, we're having ins and outs as opposed to that wall going straight across there, okay, we would have roughly 2.5 metres from there to there. But now we've still got that 2.5 metres there, but now we have 2 metres from there to there twice. So we've now added in an extra 4 metres, that's right. So that's 4 metres of underneath. Keep going down. 4 metres of footings, okay. 4 metres of excavation. 4 metres of
Steelwork.
keep going up. Steelwork,
Frame.
semi-mesh, framework. Being the steelwork in there, there'll probably be lintels around it as well, and on it goes. So just in one small little area, we've added 4 metres of a lot of cost into the house. So this is where design sometimes overrides common sense. In this case, being a display that is done for a particular reason, that sort of cutouts there. But the whole idea is that when you're looking at design work as opposed to cost, that the squarer the house, the more cost effective it is. Okay, again, to obviously add features, you always got to remember as soon as you start doing things like that, as a simple little exercise as such, the only saving you got there is you got probably 5 square metres of concrete. That wouldn't be there. Okay, that's the only saving on it, as opposed to all the additional costs that you've added in there. So when you're looking at something like that, that's the actual cost that you've got to do. If the client asks for it, you would say, okay, well, we're taking out that concrete, you've got a steel and 5 by 300 of concrete, but we're adding in footings and extra brickwork and extra lintels in steel to create that. So they're the cost estimates you've got to be working on. Now we're talking about, now we've set up our formwork and we're bringing in our steel. Steel will be ordered per... I'm talking about probably our mesh, our slab mesh. A sheet, yeah, based on the different size of it, different cost per sheet. Obviously the little chairs, the trench chairs, usually in bags of 50, 100, so paying by the bag, yeah, that's right. And the waffle pods are usually per
Square metre?
per square metre actually, yeah. So I always thought you would charge you per each, but they actually, when you're getting a price from waffle pods, they're usually based on, sometimes they can give you an each quote per job, or they'll charge you per square metre based on the height of it, because the height of the slab will determine the thickness of the, so that's a pretty easy one. Now with our, obviously for the concreter to be able to do this, he's charging you per square metre. So you can see in all the different things is why we spend a bit of time going through the unit costs, is that when you're breaking it up, it's very hard to say it's going to be a square metre rate, because you have linear metre rates, you have each rates, you have square metre rates, you have sheet rates, you have bags of 100 rates. So likewise, when you're doing all those activities and breaking those down in construction schedules, when you're doing estimates, it's very important again that you break down all those materials and the relevant things, because otherwise you're losing track of what you're actually paying. You can't guess that. You need to have those accurate prices, because the suppliers are going to be giving you what? Yeah, quotes. Yeah, quotes and price lists, exactly. So we've got the square metre of that, and we've dressed it out. I'll give you a general layout of this house and what it is again, because it's a bit demographic wide. To the front of this one, we've actually got a second master bedroom. So this actually has 2 master bedrooms. One to the front with an ensuite and walk-in robe. Then over to your left here, we've got the other master bedroom that has a walk-in ensuite robe, and that will be the main one. And that's designed to open out directly into the alfresco area. There's then a 2 bedrooms 2 and 3 along that particular hallway, and the hallway opening up into it. Now, this is a butler's pantry and the main kitchen area here, and you're in sort of the general, this is the dining area and then the family room. Now sort of just a point on that to get natural light, you'll notice over in that sort of hallway over there, at this stage there is a closed hallway, so looking from this side, that hallway running through there has no natural light coming into it. So in actual fact, what would I be putting into that? Skylights to get the natural light into that. Now just a quick one on there, looking around at that room beside us there, say that's a normal bedroom. That bedroom is roughly 4 by 3, 12 square metres. So what's the minimum size in natural light?
1.2.
1.2, spot on, mate. Yeah, 1.2, that's for natural light. Now for ventilation, half of that again, I'd say it's correct. So roughly when we're looking at that window there, which is a 12 by 12, 1.2 by 1.2, that's 1.44 square metres, so we're just a little bit over it, which is good. So it is the quick calculations you have to do when you're looking at that sort of thing. Now just looking component wise to us, and again back, we'll just look straight behind my head there, and you get those pieces of steel that are going across the internal lining there.
Bracing.
That's right. What do you call that?
Metal strap.
Cross bracing, yeah, metal strap, cross bracing. Now again, if you look at where the placements are on this, when the engineers come up with their bracing design for this particular house, they're looking at the most predominant area of wind force addressing the house, okay? So when you look along that external wall there, you'll notice that you have on the back wall, so going in, and we'll call that southerly, in the southerly direction. Okay, then the southerly face wall, we've got a fair bit of bracing here. We then have some cross bracing coming back on the internal walls at the end of that section, and then again along the hallway there. So that, going into too much into rocket science, where do you reckon the most predominant wind force would be coming in this particular, from the south? That's right. So that's why that hole is set up. They look at that in the general area, and they know that from in this part of Point Cook, the southeasterly, south-southeasterly is a really strong wind force. So not so much from the north. So when they've braced off to get a certain amount of square metre of bracing, because that's how it works on the external wall. And then likewise from that, they are cross bracing coming back on the wall supporting that. So they are addressing it on the perpendicular and then on the horizontal as well, if you're looking at it on a plane sort of layout. When you're looking at your AS1684, there we go back for a little bit, when you're looking at your AS1684, the tables at the back are good for your sizes of your timber beams and everything else, but the important part to have a look at is actually in your bracing section prior to that. Now when you're talking about your bracing section, the nails or the actual components are nominated there, with type A or type B, but it's the nailing that you've got to look at. So when you're looking at, and keep in mind, this is what your building certifier is looking at, he's looking at your nailing, that are you meeting that on your cross bracing, and what size nails and how many nails you got in there. And likewise, whether you're talking in plywood bracing or you're talking in masonite bracing, the definitive nail sizes, definitive spacings in between, depending on where it's placed on an external wall or an internal wall, whether it's on the top plate or going down across the top, there's specific spacings there for that. And that's where your AS1684 is so important, because when a building certifier comes out and that, you might as well have some chewing gum on that wall as opposed to plywood bracing if it's not nailed off in the right way. So any sort of bracing gets its strength from what we call the JDN, the joint, the JDN is the joint nominating sort of factor, which is the size of the nail and obviously how deep it must go into the timber and the number of them. So that's where we get our strength from. When you look at this whole wall component there, top plates, studs, bottom plates, the noggings in between, and the noggings are only there virtually to keep your wall straight and to have something to nail your plasterboard onto. The whole idea of that, or the strength of any of that, is purely by the nails that hold it together. Okay, so keep in mind when the building certifier comes out for, he's looking for that. Doesn't matter how clean your timber, how straight your timber is, it doesn't have any structural effect unless it's nailed off in accordance with the
AS1684.
AS1684. That's right, that's the one we're looking at. Just a quick one here on finishes, because we haven't got this one to a stage yet where we can look at that. We might come back at a later stage and look at this another time. But in looking at the placement of the nogging there, it's done for some reason. Now this is a 2700 ceiling. Okay, so when we're looking at the plasterboard going into here, what width sheets are we going to be looking at?
You need the next size, don't you? You can't go 1200 size, so you've got to go the
Next size up, yeah, which is? Sorry, Jen? 1350. Yeah, that's right. We're going 1350, 1350. So it's always a thing to remember with sheet sizes when you're going plasterboard. If you have a 2400 ceiling height, then it's 1200 and 1200. Sheet width. If you're going at 2550 or the old 8'6", it's 1350 and 1200. If you're going 9 foot like this one, then it's a 1350, 1350. So keeping that in mind, the placement of the noggins is pretty important for either screwing off or for gluing off, to have something to take your board back onto. So the placement of noggins is pretty important. A couple of different things. One is obviously to keep your timber straight, keep it braced, but also the other is to actually have something to nail using or nailing or gluing the plasterboard back onto. Okay, well, I think I might have taken up enough of your time today. Thank you all for coming. I think that covers this section. We might look at some having another one before Christmas in a more finished house and look at the sort of finishing details. But any more questions there on today that you might want to ask?
You're going to use a crane to get the window in, obviously, because you haven't got much access now.
That's exactly right. From here on through, we get windows like this. That's where your crane has to come in line. So it's a good point in there. And I said before, when you're looking at any item in the house, remember I said it's not just the item that you have to look at when you're looking at the cost of it. It's the item itself. There is labour and machinery hire. That's right. You always got to keep those in mind. And there's probably one other. You should not forget, in some cases you'll need to
Additional fees?
professional fees, that's right. It might be a certifier if something here changed and would require, like for instance, we decided as a late part to put this big window in here, and we've changed virtually the engineering away from AS1684 to an engineered product, then this would have to go back to the building certifier. So you rise out on site and says, well, hang on, this isn't what I designed, this isn't what I passed, stop, or work. He'll do that at the framing stage, like we get early. Okay? But that's the point. When you're doing those sort of things, if it requires a structural change, it's very important that on top of all those things, materials, labour, machinery hire, that you check and see whether it has to go back across the draftsperson or your architect. It has to go across maybe your estimator, and it certainly might have to go back across your building certifier. So always keep those things in mind. When doing a variation, variations are important. That's why I spent that little bit of time in it to keep rethinking everything that must go into that variation. Okay, and having done the variation, who do we send that back then to? The client, and we get, what do we have to get? Sign off on it. Before we do
Any work.
spot on.